Welcome to Edu4Sure online trainings, and today we're going to discuss about pivot and unpivot in SQL Server. The working of pivot in SQL Server is very much similar to that of in Excel. Like in Excel, if you people are comfortable working with Excel, then some or other time you have a chance to you get a data and you wanted to just have a aggregated look. What do you say? A pivoted look. What does that look like? Like by either by summating things up or by counting things up, or what is that we do? Like we do variety of aggregate operations like count, sum, min and max. So variety of operations. By doing that, we analyze the data and we give a short form, a summary of the data by doing pivot. So likewise, in SQL Server, in some other time, you might get a client requirement, say you have got data in this way, and which is you might be having data in this way, say like so this is the data I've got, like this is the table employee details, and this in employee details table. So what is that I've got the employee ID, which is being repeated, see, which is being repeated, and the name is being repeated, and the source of communication is different. Like what is the source of communication? I can contact the employee through mobile phone, work phone, email address, fax, and current residence, and these are the details of communications. Likewise, I've got information with respect to 3 employees. Okay, this Shruti Pacha, the other one is Ranbir Kapoor, and the other one is Vijay Anand Bandari. So is this in a readable format? No. So how can we, like what is that? From looking into this data, you're pretty sure that these columns are static. Okay, these columns which I see over here, these are static, and this data is being repeated. See, mobile number, work phone, email address, fax, and current residence. Like as and when we go ahead with a new employee, this data remains the same. See, again, this data remains the same. So is there a way wherein I can show the data something like this? Okay, I'll show you. I'll just copy paste all this data. Let me open an Excel. So it will be easy for you to understand. So let me see how the pivoted data looks like. Let us see. I don't have a good hands-on on Excel, so I'll just show you the output. Okay, so this is our original table. Okay, consulas. Okay, and what I'll do is these are some borders and then expand them. So this is my data. So what is that? I wanted this to be, okay, just give me a minute. So see, I see the fax number is not appropriate. So text. Okay, this is something. Okay, do one thing. Okay, put data. Okay, now I am able to see this. I don't know what is this. No, okay, now I'm able to see this. Now I want the data something like this. I want the employee ID, employee name, expected output. Okay. I just want both employee ID and employee name, and then instead of employee source of communication, I want this as columns. I want these columns as I want this data. Transpose this in the form of columns. This we have got in row wise, right? I just wanted this repeating data in column wise, like see control, and then I say paste special, and then say transpose values. Okay, I wanted it something like this. Okay, so bring this in. And VA, this and this. I want the data something like this, and I want name, employee ID name to be repeated only once, and I want all this data space special transpose values. Okay, something like this. I just want to take this way. Okay. Likewise, Ranveer as well and his data. Space special values transpose. Okay. Likewise, Shruti Pacha's information. Her data column wise. Space special transpose values. Okay. So this is how I want the data to. I'm expecting the results is something like this. Okay, let me bring this closer. Workflow. Let me take this. Okay, okay. This is not working. This would work. Yeah, fine. I want the data something like this, but this is pretty easy to understand, pretty easy to read, because see the mobile phone it is same. So I've taken the repeated column as a repeated row. I mean, sorry. Okay, the data we have got here in the form of columns, and I'm transposing it to a row. Okay, whatever the data that is being repeated, I want this repeated column data as a row, like column header, and the data here as the details, the record values. So let us see if we can achieve this by making use of the pivot function here in SQL Server. So see, what is that we need to do at first? Okay, let me write this again. So this is the table. So this is the table we have. Okay, I'll take this table as a source table. Okay. Select star from. So let me create a derived table from this, and I'll call this as source. Okay. In select star from employee details, I've got all the information, the complete information. Okay. Now, what is that I'm expecting? The output, I want employee ID, employee name. I'll take out the star and I'll come up with employee ID, employee name, employee name. Is that employee name? Oh, it is EMP name. That's the reason it is not IntelliSense is not prompting EMP name. And what is that I wanted? I wanted the mobile phone, work phone, email address, fax, and current residence as column names. So let me write this: mobile phone, work phone, email address, fax, and current residence. So why do we see these errors over here? If you remember, I've clearly mentioned that whenever you're working in SQL Server, it is mandatory. Whenever you're coming up with some column names or something, either you use the underscore or you avoid the spaces. And if you're not doing that, at least put open square brackets and close square brackets. See, if at all you're putting open and close square brackets, see, work phone, this is what happens. If at all you put open, close square brackets, email address. IntelliSense is prompting the corresponding column. Like it is trying to read the column values. I mean, these are allowed, but not column names with spaces. See, these are okay. Okay. Now, what is that we wanted to do? Pivot. How can we do a pivot in SQL Server? By making use of pivot function. Okay. So in pivot, you need to make use of the aggregate functions depending upon the business requirement. Here in our case, everything is a varchar. So what I'll do is minimum of varchar or maximum of varchar, give me the same. But see, some count will go with the number types. Min and max also goes with the number type, but also with the character type as well. Okay. So what I'll do is I can either use minimum or maximum. Okay. I'll show you with both. What is that I'm doing? I'll also show you now. For column name in, what is the column names that we want to be populated here? I mean, as the columns, this one. for employee EMP source of communication in, let me copy paste this and put it over here. It is simple. See, copy this and paste it over here, right? And give a domain name for this pivot function. PIV is a pivot temp is the name I wanted to give. And here in minimum values, you need to come up with the actual details, employee details of communication. I'll give it over here. EMP details of form. Let us see if this gonna give this output or not. What is that I have did? Firstly, take the source table, the table which where we have the data. Take this table, okay, and then derive the table. How do you derive a table? Simply by putting an open and close brackets for the select star from table name command, and give an alias name at the end of the closing bracket, and before the closing bracket you need to come up with select star from, select star as in whatever the column names you want in the output, you need to come up with those column names. Here employee ID and employee name are readily available in this table, so we don't have an issue. And see, okay, I'll do one thing for better understanding how derivative table works. I'll show you. See, this is the table where I have the data. Select star from table. This is the original table. So if I say select star, select employee ID, employee name from this table, like this is not the table as of now. In database, we have only table named employee details. But here, source, I'm asking the source will be the derived table now. This is not the table, but the database engine for time being, it treats source as a derived table. Okay. So when I say, so what is that we have got in source? This entire table, this entire data. So what is that we wanted to populate in the result set? I want only employee ID and employee name. These two only I want in the result set. So that is the reason why we come up with the derived table. So, but here in our case, what is that I wanted to populate in the result set? I want the entire data, the repeating data from this table. I want this data from here to here. Instead of column, I want it as a row, and I want this in the output. So I put it over here. Why did we come up with open and close square brackets? Because in SQL Server, it is advisable to use an underscore for the continuity of the column name, or not to provide any spaces, any white spaces. Other than this, what you can do, if it is mandatory for you to provide the white space in between in column names, then it is requested, then it is suggested you put that whatever the name you wanted to give, whatever the column header you wanted to give with white spaces, you put that in between two open and square brackets. Then that will be treated as a single entity, single unit. So that is what we have done here. So how do we get a pivoted result? By making use of pivot function. And what is that in the we have got in the pivot function? You need to aggregate the data. For aggregation of data, what is that we have got in hand? Sum, count, min, and max. Sum and count purely goes with the string data type. Min and max goes with both number data type and character data type. So minimum of a character value, maximum of a character value will give me the same results. So I can either go for min or max. Just a minute. So this is a pivot function. So, and what is that I have done for column name in? What is the column data I want to populate in a row wise? Like what is the column data I want that to be transposed into a row? So this is the column data I want this to be transposed into a row. Okay, what is that we are taking in the aggregate function? The actual details and the actual values. The columns comes in the for condition next to the for, and the column header. See, to make things simple and to keep things simple and clear, blindly you keep these things in mind. After for whatever it comes, that will be the one, that will be the data which you want to transpose into a row. Okay, you need to come up with the column header over here. Employee source of communication is the column header of the data which you want the column data to be transposed into a row, and you need to come up with in followed by open and close brackets, and whatever the data you want to see in the whatever the data you wanted to see in the result set, that columns you need to come up over here. You need to put those columns in between these open and close brackets. And the actual data for these columns, you put it in the aggregate function. That's it. Close it and see. Let us run and let us see. Have you got this? This is the magic of pivot in SQL Server. Let put it over here. Let me put it over here and see if the data is matching. See, 331, 331 Vijay Bandari, so everything is matched. So this is how we do pivot in SQL Server, and working of pivot and unpivot is same. So what I do is I'll take this data. So we might get data in like we have got in employee details. In this way, if this is the data, if you wanted better understanding, a better summarized data, you make use of pivot and you can derive the results. And if sometimes you will be provided with the pivoted data. So what I'll do is I'll take this result set into a demo, into this table, table underscore pivot demo. Okay. Okay, table underscore pivot. There is a table already. I'll run this command. Okay, 3 rows. So let me see what I have got in table underscore pivot. So sometimes you might get data something like this, but this is not what you wanted. So this is rarely asked, only for your understanding, for knowledge purpose. You need to know how a data can be transformed into pivot and how a data can be reversed back into a unpivoted data. You can either pivot or you can unpivot, do both. So what is that? If you got the data in this form and now you wanted the data to be in this form. So how do you do that? It is simple. The working is almost simple. You'll select the source table over here and keep it as source, derive the table, and simply what is that you wanted in the result set? You wanted these two columns. You come up with these two columns, okay? And instead of pivot, you will be coming up with the unpivot keyword, open brackets, close brackets, okay? Employee details of communication. This is where your actual data is. And what is that you wanted? And this remains the same, okay? Employee source of communication. See, let us compare this with this. Employee source for communication remains the same, but instead of the aggregate function, what is that we have got it? What is that we have written? The straightly the data. We don't in unpivot, we don't do any aggregation. That's the reason why we take it out. Okay. See, I'll write the same by making very minute changes over here. Copying this, and I'll say unpivot example for unpivot. Copy paste the same. I'll take this out. So this is our source table. This becomes our source table. So what I'll do is I'll take that out and I'll put it over here. For clarity purpose, I'll run this and I'll see if the data, okay, the data is this in this table. Now from here, I want this to be normalized. From summarized, take it back to the normalized form. So what is that I wanted here? I want these two as column names. Copy them, take them out, paste them over here, comma. Okay, we are done with the first part. We have got the source table and we have derived the column names from it. Now what is that we wanted to do? Let's take out the aggregate function because we are unpivoting it. Okay, rest remains the same. For, not for, we'll take this out. So now let us see. Oh. This should be unpivot, right? Rest all remains the same. I have only taken out, I have only removed only few. What is that I have removed? I don't want columns in this way. So what is that I wanted? Look into the result set. I wanted this as column names. I'll put them over here. And what is that I have done? I have taken out pivot and I have added I have prefixed un, so it has become unpivot. Now we are making use of unpivot, like we are reversing the pivoted data to unpivoted data. Okay, from summarized to normalized data. And as this is an unpivot, we don't make use of any aggregate function. So aggregate function has been removed. Rest all remains the same. instead of pivtem, what I do is I say it as unpivtem, unpivot. Okay, run this and you'll be able to see this data. This one over here. Run this, see the data is back. So it depends. Like if the data is normalized and you want it to be summarized, make use of pivot function. If the data is pivoted, summarized, and you want to bring it back to normalized form, make use of unpivot keyword. So what is that? What are the major differences between pivot and unpivot? When working with pivot, making use of the aggregation functions is must. And whatever the data, whatever the column data you want to transpose it into a row, that particular column data to be placed open. Yeah. So just a minute, I'm sorry. Sorry. So what is that I'm saying? The differences between pivoted and unpivoted syntaxes. So see, first you need to take out the source and derive the columns. It purely depends upon the result set. So look into the result set and derive the columns accordingly. Make sure point to be noted is your column names. If at all your column names, if at all your business requirement is expecting spaces between the column names, then you put those column names between the square brackets. So only then it works. If at all you're missing them, then it's gonna throw you an error. Whatever the column names you're expecting, copy the column names and put them in the pivot part. We have got two parts. One is bringing on the source square and deriving the columns, and another one is pivot function part. In pivot function part, if at all you're doing a pivot, if at all you're summarizing the data, make use of the aggregate function accordingly. It could be minimum, it could be maximum, it could be sum, or it could be a count. And the column where we have the actual data, and the constant, whatever the data you want to transport from columns to rows, that data needs to come in the next to the for keyword. For and that particular column name from the table, in and the column names hash. This column for this column and the data, and this column has got data something like this, in, followed by this and closing. Accordingly, run this and you would get this. See, this is very simple topic. You practice the same again and again and again, and you create a dummy data and again you try it. You might be asking me, what if we now here we have got some repeated data. So what if I don't have any repeated data? What if I don't have email address, fax, and current address? So let me create a new employee. Okay, let us see that as well. What is that we're gonna get in place of that? Insert into employee details. Okay, select what is that? 329 Pratap Chaitanya Nath mobile phone 987-546-321. Okay. Yes. Also, what I'll do is I'll insert one more record. It won't be clear if I insert only one record. Okay. Insert into union all. Let me copy this and paste this. Let it be some 326. Let the name be some Sai Kiran. This mobile phone. Oh, sorry. I need to come with the same name. I'm sorry. Pratap Chidan, I need to copy this. Because the data is redundant, right? So that's the reason we need to copy this. We should not change the data. And yeah, instead of mobile phone, what is that here again? We'll say email address. So email address, I'll say p.chaitanya@hotmail.com. Okay. Okay. I just wanted to insert these two records. Execute. Okay. Error converting data type to int. Okay. This is varchar, so that's the reason we have come up with that error. Okay, execute. 2 rows affected. Now see. if you develop or if you create data for one record perfectly, it applies to all the data. So now see, what is that we have given for Pratap Chaitanya? This is a new entry into this table, and we are only provided with mobile phone and email address. What about work phone, fax, and current residence? So will this gonna throw me an error, or will it work fine? If at all, if it is throwing me an error, what is that error? If at all, if it is working fine, what will be the possible values for work phone? What will be the possible value for fax and current residence? Okay, right. It won't be throwing me any error because the value, like, see, you, for example, what it says, can I say something like this? If I say select, okay, let us refer this table, trivial underscore genders. If you remember, apart from this, can I also say comma and I'll say dummy as and I call this value as dummy column. I'm hard coding that and I call this as dummy column. Will this throw me an error? No, because the value is hard coded and it will be the same. It will remain same for all the columns. Likewise, the column value remains same. But what is that we're gonna get in place of hard coding? We're gonna get a null value. Let us see that in action. See that facts, current, whatever the values we are missing, we did not provide for the record Pratap Chaitanya in TBL in employee details. The missing values by default it's gonna get null. So this is how it works. Pivot and unpivot is this simple. Hope you have understood the concept. You can make use of this pivot and unpivot in procedures and in variety of the places. The concept is same. All you need to do is you need to apply, try something new. If at all you're facing any hurdles, if at all you are not cracking that up, please feel free to come back to me or drop me an message to Edu4Sure. I'm happy to help. I gonna let us do what is it? We do an autopsy of your problem, and I make sure you understand it in a very beautiful way. Right? Thanks. That's all for today. This is all about pivot and unpivot. Stay tuned for more videos. Yeah. Thank you.